Doctor Strange,
Doctor
you
Strange.
magical bitch.
Yeah, so we just watched Doctor Strange. Pretty good. Mr. Doctor Strange.
Mr. Doctor Strange. Minor spoiler warning, we are going to cover a couple different topics that might ruin some of the surprises or excitement in the movie for you, so stop watching right now.
Spoilers, this movie is about magic. Marvel movies are well known for having those scenes at the end of the credits, and now they're even more well known for having 2 scenes at the end of the credits, one after the fake credits and one after the real credits. Essentially, in Doctor Strange, we felt like those 2 scenes really should have been flipped.
Oh yeah.
Because one of the scenes contains a twist that directly ties into the movie. Like, you get the sense that this twist happens like mere weeks after the movie takes place and ties directly back into it, but it's a twist that you can kind of see coming.
Yeah, it totally felt like it was a no shit moment. Like, no shit, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah. Whereas the other scene really sets up, like, what's going to happen next in the Marvel Universe. Which I would think you would want to set up the next movie at the end of the movie you're currently watching.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. The first scene after the credits was the exciting one. That was the one where you're like, oh man, I can't wait for the tie-in to the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then the second one was it just fell flat. It's like, I knew that was going to happen.
Exactly.
Fucking terrible idea. So one of the things that we both really loved about the movie was the visual effects. Super impressive. Think of a cross between the space parts of Interstellar, that fourth dimensional stuff, and Inception, and an acid trip. And that's basically what you get. So it was really cool, really exciting to see. And they were really, I guess you could say, creative with the effects and the way people move through the environment. So the visual effects were just absolutely stunning. Hats off to them for it. It was
Every
great.
time special effects were on the screen, they were always fun to look at.
Oh yeah.
It's not like, because like every other Marvel movie, it uses a ton of these visual effects.
Yeah.
But in some of them, it actually gets kind of tiring, and in some of them, like, it's like, oh, that actually looks kind of fake.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And
in this movie, like, they're presented so well that it never gets grating.
Well, I think it's also the subject matter too, since it's not like, hey, look at this real person moving through the real world insanely fast. It's like, look at this person who's conjuring magic to, break down buildings and all this cool stuff. The best way I could describe the visual effects in this movie is fractals on fractals on fractals. Yeah. Like, that's what it was. The whole visual effects, the guy is just creating fractals and
it's like a 360-degree kaleidoscope.
Yeah, exactly. So it was beautiful, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, as good as the visual effects are, there was one particular part, just this one section where our main character, Dr. Stephen Strange, is introduced to this mystical new character called the Ancient One. And of course, he's totally skeptical of her power, doubts her at every turn, and then when she finally shows him the extent of what she can do and what's possible, it must have been like only a 2.5 to 3 minute sequence, but it's such a range of colors and like scene transitions and, as Fern said, like fractals on fractals on fractals on fractals that, like, I think that's the only time in the movie where it did become kind of disorienting to keep staring at the screen for so long, and you actually said earlier, like, maybe they should have put an epilepsy warning before this movie started.
They definitely should have put an epileptic warning, especially for that scene that he's referring to. It's 2.5 minutes, maybe. It's about 30 to 45 seconds too long. I mean, it looked great, but there's just so much going on, and it just overwhelms you.
Yeah.
So the cinematography, which went hand in hand with the visual effects, was overall amazing. But sometimes it felt like fight scenes or chase scenes were taking place on those infinite stairs that just kind of keep going. You know, it looks like a cube or a square, and you don't know if you're going up or down. And it got really confusing sometimes, so you don't know who's chasing who,
right?
Or are they catching them or are they running after that? I don't get it.
It's still interesting to look at.
Yeah.
It's still great to look at, but then suddenly a character will appear from out of frame, and you realize in your head that you're not really processing it. You're just kind of enjoying the visual effects, and then whatever happens, you're kind of saying, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's exactly it. Sometimes it was a little hard to process, but I think maybe, at least I gave it kind of a pass because it was still entertaining.
Yeah.
Like it's like you try to wrap your head around it.
It's still a treat to look at.
But yeah, it was still fun to look at.
If you ever watched some of those Jason Bourne movies, the fight cinematography in those often gets really close up to the actors, and this only happened twice throughout the entire movie, but it was like that dialed up to 11, to the point where you could not tell what was going on, and there were literally, in the span of 3 seconds, 4 different camera changes.
Yeah, so it was like one of those real choppy, like quick cut kind of scenes.
And it didn't look good.
And yeah, it didn't look too great.
It was the only part of the movie that wasn't presented well.
Now, on the other hand, there were some epic fight scenes too, and they were wildly creative with the use of their space. Without giving away too much, there's a fight scene that's, for all intents and purposes, done in an environment where everything's in reverse. That was one of the coolest scenes for me because they were very creative with the use of space and the use of objects that are, in an instance, moving backwards through time while the characters are fighting in the moment.
Some of the most interesting fight scenes in any Marvel movie.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Some of the most interesting. It may not have been like the baddest, the biggest hits, but definitely some of the most creative fight scenes I've seen in a Marvel movie up to this point. Yeah.
So in regards to one of the more confusing bits of cinematography, we're introduced to the Master of New York. Now, the Masters are essentially these master sorcerers situated in different parts of the globe, and they're responsible for basically keeping order and keeping time flowing as it should. You get the sense that the Masters are supposed to be the cream of the crop. They're the most trained, the most diligent, the most intelligent, and unfortunately, the Master who is situated in New York is introduced and then killed off in the exact same scene. Literally 30 to 45 seconds later, you see, oh, he's the Master. He's going to have a great scene, and it's over. And to top it off, it's one of the least interesting fight scenes in the movie.
Oh yeah, most definitely, and it was really not so much a fight scene as it was just an execution, because in the same scene, Stephen Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch is in the scene, and he's able to, I don't want to say beat the other 3 that were attacking, but he's able to
fend them off
and survive, whereas this Master literally dies, after a couple of hits. He gets stabbed through the heart or something like that. I felt like that scene was solely there to open the door for Doctor Strange to become the master of that location.
Yes.
Like, that's the only reason why they had the Master die off there. Is just kind of almost a, I don't want to call it Deus Ex Machina, but it's just kind of...
It was just like you created a disposable character to move the plot forward.
Yeah, and it felt a little bit weak. On another note, something that I found was odd, and I know it was the writing, it had to be the screenplay itself. You have this situation where Benedict Cumberbatch did a spell once, and all of a sudden he's the fucking master of this spell. Because of this spell, he's able to save the entire universe. I thought that was lazy as shit. It's kind of like saying, I drove a car one time, and now I'm gonna go race Formula 1 and win a championship.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me.
Like, he literally starts the spell on a tiny object, and at the end, he's using it on an entire city. And you never ever see him use the spell on anything aside from the tiny object and then a city.
Yeah, so it felt like a big leap there. I thought that was really lazy. I thought that was no development. And there's really no real explanation as to why he's able to do it on an apple and then all of a sudden on a city. Other than the fact that they keep saying you have a natural predisposition to the magical arts.
Not to mention that they reprimand him when they find out he's using this spell. When they first find out he's using it, they reprimand him and say it would be incredibly easy to break time. Literally break time. And then he does it on an entire city, no problem. So, there you go.
Good job, writers.
One of the closing things we'd like to say is that this movie is definitely one of the funniest Marvel movies, probably the funniest Marvel movie since Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy had a great humor to it. There was constantly like little jokes here and there, and Doctor Strange just takes on that formula and executes on it even better.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, not to say Doctor Strange is funnier than Guardians, but they do a great job of it. of maintaining a sense of levity, even though some of the subject matter is kind of dark.
Yeah.
But definitely the funniest Marvel movie for me since the first Guardians.
And it has a very consistent humor.
Yeah.
Lots of some of the Marvel movies will have humor in the beginning.
It's like,
and then they'll have a sprinkle of jokes.
Yep. Exactly.
And then it'll kind of trail off.
That's exactly what I was gonna get at. Was that most Marvel movies have this world, this screen, this entire world, and then it's sprinkled with jokes. Whereas with Guardians and as well as with Doctor Strange, it felt like the jokes were definitely a part of these characters because it just felt more real.
Definitely.
Watching Dr. Stephen Strange develop on screen, yeah, of course he's gonna make the same kind of jokes from the beginning to the end of the movie. That's just his character.
Yeah.
So it definitely made sense. I'm really glad that they had that.
But he still has great development. Like he's still.
Yeah, all in all,
he's still a different person at the end of the movie than he was at the start.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
not just because he has powers. So if you've read the Doctor Strange source material, the comics, let us know what you think. Was this a good adaptation of the source material, or did it stray too far?
I would love to hear from you guys. Any old school fans or fans of the original comics, I should say. I'm probably going to go back and check them out because I really liked the movie. I thought it was really cool and I'd like to explore more of this character. Other than that, I thought it was an awesome movie. One of the more entertaining Marvel movies to come out recently.
Definitely.
Yeah, so go check it out for yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
See ya.